Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to Temenggong Artists in Residence. Thank you to everyone for joining us this Saturday evening. And special thanks to our invited speakers, Ms. Pim Bisauputra and Mr. Jeffery Sng, who both came from Thailand, and our guest speaker for tonight, Prof. Kishore Mabubani. Let us all give them a warm welcome.
Thank you.
Temenggong is honored to have them here today. Before we start the talk, may I please remind everyone to turn off or mute your mobile phones, and please do not record or film this talk. Temenggong will upload the talk on our website once it is ready. Thank you. And now over to Mr. Martino Tan, who will be today's talk's moderator. Thank you, Martino.
Hi, can you hear me? All right, good evening, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the talk on China and the South China Sea, a porcelain collector's recollection. I'm Martino, and I'll be the moderator. Firstly, let's welcome all the friends and guests, of Temenggong. You know the drill here at Temenggong. There's always good conversations to have, to spark your imagination, new friends to make, and of course, good food to enjoy later. So thanks to the hospitality of our hosts, Henry and Reese. And for the guests who are joining us for the first time, a very warm welcome to you. Temenggong Artists in Residence is a non-profit arts charity founded by Singapore artist Henry Cheng in 2009. And Temenggong strives to inspire arts, heritage, and cultural appreciation to the public by presenting quality works. And today we'll be presenting quality conversations and discussions, which we'll get to shortly. But before I dive in, I'll just briefly go through the program. So the talk this evening is about the spread of Chinese culture through trade across the South China Sea. This is embodied in the ceramic ware and Chinese culture artifacts under the watch of the Chinese tributary system and private trade from the 14th century until the end of the 20th century. And we'll learn more about this in the talks later. We have 3 short talks by 3 distinguished speakers here, followed by a Q&A session. Then we'll proceed for dinner. And now, to kick off this session, I would like to invite Mr. Jeffery Sng up on stage here to speak. And Mr. Sng will be providing a background on the Chinese tributary system and the South China Sea. Mr. Sng is a writer and a former diplomat based in Bangkok. And he's the co-author of A History of the Thai-Chinese and the ASEAN Miracle, a Catalyst for Peace. Mr. Sng, please. Yeah.
Oh. Good evening, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here this evening. And I wish to thank Henry and Reese for kindly inviting, not only inviting, but for his hospitality as well. I'm the supporting speaker this evening. The main speaker is Kun Pim from Thailand. She is going to speak about the spread of Chinese culture embodied in objects, art objects, cultural artifacts, by maritime trade. From the dating back to the 14th, 15th century. As supporting speaker, my task is to explain the context in which this Chinese cultural diffusion was happening across the South China Sea. Geographically, the South China Sea lies at the heart of Southeast Asia. It's the center of gravity of today's ASEAN region. When China became regional hegemon during the 14th, 15th century, the South China Sea was subsumed under the Chinese tributary system. During the Ming Dynasty, the Chinese tributary system was a loose association of states straddling East Asia, mainland Southeast Asia, and the South China Sea. It's a very mixed, diverse grouping of states and kingdoms based on common acceptance of social and political hierarchy. In other words, all members accept a hierarchical ranking of status or pecking order, with China as the regional hegemon at the top, sitting at the apex of the pyramid. All other states were vassal states that accept China's suzerainty and pay tribute to the Chinese emperor. Beside the pyramid, another useful image is the stairway. There's a very interesting book called A Stairway to Heaven by a Jewish historian named Zechariah Sitchin. This is actually a book about mythology, the mythology of a very old kingdom called Sumeria, a civilization older than China. Although it's not really about China, the metaphor, a stairway to heaven, is a very interesting analogy which captures the essence of the Chinese cosmological order, cosmological world order. According to this analogy, China, as the celestial kingdom, sits on top of the stairway to heaven. Cosmologically, the bridge between heaven and earth is embodied in the person of the Chinese emperor. According to Confucian doctrine, the Chinese emperor is deified. He's a deified being, a sort of deity, and carries the title of the Son of Heaven. The Chinese emperor, as the Son of Heaven, rules over all earth by the mandate of heaven, by a form of divine right. Below China, below the celestial kingdom, are the core states, sit the core states of the Chinese tributary system. These are the Sinicized states, those states which partake of Chinese culture as well as Chinese civilization. Namely, of course, China herself, then Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. The core states are the major states that represent the pillars supporting the Chinese tributary system. Below this level, one rung down the ladder, are the smaller kingdoms and principalities of the South China Sea. They are secondary states. During the Cold War, it was fashionable to present the Chinese tributary system as a trading system. That Harvard scholar, Professor John Fairbanks, that grand old American of Chinese history, defined the Chinese tributary system as an ancient form of trading system. Since that time, the word has been used to mean a traditional type of Chinese trading system. Now, trade was certainly a part of this system, perhaps even its most important part. But to dismiss the Chinese tributary system as just another trading system would be to deny its very most important dimension. The Chinese tributary system embodies the attempt to force all economic and political contact with China into the exclusive framework of official tributary relations. What this means is that, well, now all contact with China must be regarded as tributary. So you can no longer just trade with China like you trade with, say, a Western country. Because by trading with China, you are necessarily paying tribute to the Chinese emperor. That, well, time-hallowed custom or practice of bearing gifts for the Chinese emperor as token of obeisance has now become a necessary part of the China trade. However, because trade was so important to Southeast Asia's kings, princes, and rulers, perhaps this was considered a small price to pay. Many local kings, princes, and sultans were quite happy, more than happy, to submit and become vassals of China under this Chinese tributary system in order to gain access to that huge China market, a situation that is reminiscent of our own world today until the advent of that COVID-19 lockdown of the world economy. Moreover, and this is the interesting part, moreover, the gifts that the vassal receives from the Chinese imperial court always exceed in value the presents brought by the bearer for the Chinese emperor. Consequently, for local rulers, paying tribute to the Chinese emperor is really no big deal. So we can see that obviously there's something more to this than just a trading matter. However, if the Chinese tributary system is not just another trading system, as Professor Fairbanks would have us believe, then the question arises, then what is this Chinese tributary system with all that elaborate diplomatic ritual, kowtow, and pompous protocol all really about? Well, to look at it another way, in addition to a trading system, the Chinese tributary system also embodies a regional system of interstate collective security based, of course, on a Chinese world order. This Chinese world order, as I have mentioned, is very explicit as well as formally unequal, meaning that secondary states were not allowed to pretend to be China's equal, nor do they really actually believe themselves to be the equal of China. China was clearly, indisputably, the dominant cultural, economic, and military power in the system. But, there is a big but China does not avow a goal of expansion against neighboring states. China does not have a policy of annexation at the expense of neighboring states. Once this is understood, once this is acknowledged, once this is accepted, then all states inside the system could now begin to live with the rule sets as well as the institutions that govern the way interstate relations work, or how they should work. Thus, the Chinese tributary system serves a dual function. On one hand, it is a trading system, as Professor Fairbanks has rightly alleged, wherein all members could share in the benefits of that lucrative China trade. During the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, the China trade had become so important that all the polities of the South China Sea had grown to depend on that China trade for their economic lifeline. On the other hand, it also represents a regional system of interstate collective security marked by centuries of stability and peace among core states and secondary states. Under the watch of the Chinese tributary system, peace prevailed across China's eastern and southern frontiers. From the year 1368, the year of the founding of the Ming Dynasty, until 1841, the year of the First Opium War, that is 473 years, almost 500 years. Interestingly, there were only 3 wars which happened inside the Chinese tributary system. Let me qualify that. I'm speaking about interstate war, the problem that a collective security mechanism is designed to address. I'm not talking about peasant rebellions, skirmishes with pirates and bandits, or domestic civil strife, which arguably fall outside the scope of a collective security system. So, to repeat, there were 3 wars during this long period. The first war was when the Ming Dynasty invaded Vietnam from 1407 until 1428. The second war was the Imjin War, caused by Japan's invasion of Korea, which was a member of the Chinese tributary system. The invasion was led by that Japanese Admiral Hideyoshi with a large force of 700 ships, larger than the Spanish Armada of that period. The Imjin War lasted from 1592 until 1598. The third war was when the Manchu Emperor Qianlong attacked Ava, the capital of Myanmar, in the wake of Myanmar's invasion of Ayutthaya, which was also a member of the Chinese tributary system, in 1766. Now, apart from these three wars, all the regional powers of the Chinese tributary system maintain peaceful, stable, and long-lasting relations with each other for nearly 500 years. Now, with the arrival of Western colonialism, with the establishment of Western imperialism in Asia, the Chinese tributary system went into decline. The fall of the Chinese tributary system ended the long peaceful era in Asia. After the Western powers dismantled the Chinese tributary system and replaced it with the Western Westphalian system of international relations in Asia, the theater of the South China Sea became engulfed by warfare. In contrast to nearly 500 years of peace, from 1368 until 1841, the next 100 years, from 1841 to 1941, saw incessant warfare. In 1841, there was the First Opium War. It was followed by the Second Opium War in 1856. In 1865, you had the outbreak of the First Sino-Japanese War. 1899, Boxer War, where China fought the Western powers, culminating in the sacking of the legendary Summer Palace. At the turn of the century, in 1905, saw the outbreak of the Russo-Japanese War, where Japan became the first Asian power to defeat a Western power at sea. Then, in 1931, there was the Second Sino-Japanese War caused by Japan's invasion of Manchuria. And in 1937, there was that great Battle of Nanjing, following which there was widespread raping, looting, and mass murder, where over 200,000 people died in Nanjing. And then, just shortly after that, a little later, in 1941, saw the outbreak of the Great Pacific War of the Second World War. The Pacific War lasted from 1941 until August 1945. And Martino is after me, so I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.